Hello, listeners to Doctor Who, The Complete Review, and today, you may have noticed, if you've been around the internet or nearby any record stores, it is in fact Record Store Day. And to celebrate, as usual with Record Store Day, we've got two brand new Doctor Who vinyl releases. And I'm lucky enough today to be talking to somebody who drew the artwork for one of those releases. I'd like them to introduce themselves right now, if that's possibly okay.
Hi. My name's David Timoney. I'm a freelance illustrator and general doodler.
If to start, I was just asking a bit about your career as an artist and, as you say, general doodler. What inspired you? What was the thing that first made you think that's what I'd like to get into? That's what I'd like to do.
Yeah, no, I was very, very influenced by my father, who was he wasn't a professional artist, but he used to draw and paint all the time, and I have very early memories of him doing creative things in the house. You know, he'd sit down and listen to some old blues and jazz and sit and do some drawing and painting. It was really inspiring. So you end up doing that yourself, and you get a good response from doing it. People, other kids at school, they'll look at that and go, well, what a great thing. You've got a talent, carry on doing it. So that's what I've always done, I suppose.
Did you ever draw? You mentioned about taking inspiration from your father. Did you ever draw with him, or what was the sort of reaction you got from him if you did draw?
Yeah, I did. We did. We actually invented a sort of little Viking comic book because I was really into Asterix and Obelix and those kind of things. And so we invented a little comic strip. So he'd draw it and I'd colour it in and things like that. So yeah, I suppose that was where the initial love of sequential artwork came from, and narrative artwork.
When moving on from this, what was your first, I suppose you could say, official piece of artwork that got published and out there?
I think I was commissioned to do something for a local music promotion company when I was a teenager. I was thinking about this earlier on. That was deeply embarrassing, and I did that. And I looked back, it was published in the local newspaper, and I was very proud at the time. But I look back and think, that was terrible. But in terms of early professional commissions, I was asked to do a piece for the British Library, for a promotional film for the British Library, and it was to do with the Comics Unmasked exhibition that they did. So it was only a couple of years ago, but I was extremely proud of that. It was kind of thrown at me as a very short sort of time frame commission, and very proud to have been involved in that. That was nice.
When you say that you did that little piece for the local paper, what was it that you actually drew for that?
It was a logo for a music promotions company.
Oh, okay.
And I think I was kind of renowned, well, not renowned, but a few people kind of knew me as being someone that could draw. So this, David, can you do this? And it was absolutely, it was terrible, really. But it was the first experience of doing something that had some public exposure, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. So it's anything's a start, though. Anything is a start to get yourself into these sort of things, though, I imagine.
Well, absolutely. You've got to sort of get used to the idea of what people are asking for and producing that. Because it's very rare, I think, to get asked to actually just do exactly what you like doing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes having too broad a brief is no use to you at all, really, because you don't really know where to go. But yeah, anything's a start, and these little things are. It's all a learning experience.
Yeah, so every piece is important. And moving on from that, in how much you've drawn over the years, what would you say is something that stands out as something that you are the most pleased with, looking back? If your first piece is something that you sort of cringe at now.
I suppose there's been quite a few things. I'm actually probably proudest of at the moment of the piece, the Record Store Day. It's personally, I think it's one of the more accomplished pieces that I've done. I've done a few things that were more intricate, or took longer, or had more detail, or perhaps more personal. But this, I've been a Doctor Who fan for years, and I've got a huge vinyl collection. So as a combination of the two things, it was I'm very, very proud to have been asked to do it, and very proud of the actual piece I created, which is unusual because quite often create something and then think that's really not. I could have done more. It could have been better, and you'd always think that. But that particular piece, I was really pleased with. So.
Well, moving on from that, you mentioned being a Doctor Who fan. How aware were you of Doctor Who before your first Doctor Who piece of work, which I believe was for the Monster Month promotion for the social media of Doctor Who in 2016?
It was. I'm a lifelong Whovian, really. very early memories of Tom Baker and being absolutely terrified of it, and only being vaguely allowed to watch it. And you know, the original hiding behind the sofa stuff. So, yeah, no, very, very much aware. And when the newly reinvented, whatever you want to call it, Doctor Who came out as an adult, I absolutely loved it and bought into the whole thing. You know, 100% loved it. So, yeah, no, it's a bit of a dream commission for me.
Yeah.
It's, I'm a big fan and always have been ever since I was a child.
When that commission came through for that piece of artwork, looking at your website, there's a lot of different versions of I believe it was for the Silence that you drew an image for. Were there any sort of
That's right.
particular challenges when designing that?
The piece that was commissioned was originally just to be the Facebook header for that month, because they had a different illustrator that provided a creature for every month. They wanted it so that it would fit on several different formats. It needed to fit in Twitter, and it needed to fit as a profile type picture, so it needed to be quite close up. So that was quite new to me, because I had to look up the dimensions, I had to work out how it was all going to work, and whether I could produce a piece that I could edit into several different formats. So I mocked up quite a few different versions of the Silence and sent them off, and just to sort of see where they were going to go with it. And they chose one particular, and that turned out to be quite, well, not easy, but because it was spread out, there were I think 5 figures in it. I could condense them to be quite close or spread them out quite widely digitally. So it worked.
In terms of actually creating that, what tools do you use often to create your work, and that piece in particular?
I'm quite old-fashioned. I'm very traditional, really.
Very good.
I tend to draw things out in pencil and do several different kind of versions, so I get familiar with the piece, with any likenesses or any kind of details that have to be in there, because when you're working with something like Doctor Who, you know, there's a lot of people out there that will look and go, hang on a minute, that guy had 3 buttons on his shirt, and in fact, you know, he is supposed to have 2. So you have to be quite, you know, and I understand that, being a bit of a sort of nerd myself. These things are important. Yeah, very, very much. I'll start off just with a pencil drawing, and then I'll go in and it's usually brush and ink, or brush pens and ink, literally just throwing ink onto the paper, and then I'll scan the artwork. And if there's more than one element, often I'll draw them separately, and then I scan the physical drawings, put them together in Photoshop, and then I can manipulate them and move them around how I want them. And then I'll usually colour in Photoshop, or I've got an iPad Pro that I use, which is really nice for effects and colours. In fact, the recent Doctor Who one was largely coloured on the iPad Pro. So.
Oh wow! I find that really intriguing, that there's sort of the header and profile image for a Facebook and Twitter account, that's something that's totally digital, was created with pen and ink, basically. I find that really fascinating. That's pretty brilliant.
Yeah, I don't think it's very common, actually, for illustrators to use traditional medium these days like that, but I find it quite nice. I think you can get effects that you can get very, very random effects. You know, I think everything that you get in a digital creation, nothing is given to you for free. You have to specifically create a certain effect, whereas sometimes things accidentally happen in traditional medium that you wouldn't necessarily have planned, but they work out well. You know, a splash of ink here, or you know, a change in the weight or the thickness of a line that makes something a bit more alive or a bit more enjoyable.
Well, that brings me nicely onto the Record Store Day release itself. Was it somehow linked to your work on the Monster Month project that linked on to you getting this? How were you approached for the release?
Well, the Monster Month piece, somebody at BBC Worldwide had seen my work on my website, and there was a couple of Doctor Who bits on there, and because they were looking at illustrators for each month, they'd shown it to the guy that was running the Facebook page, and they'd instantly jumped on it. And it was, as I probably touched on earlier, it was a bit of a dream, because they came back to me and said, we love your style, we want you to just do your style, not try and tailor it to anything, but do this creature in your style, which I really enjoyed. And then the same person at BBC Worldwide, obviously, a little light bulb went off in their head when there was the talk of the Record Store Day record. So the album cover. So they got in touch with me and asked me if I'd come on board and do that. And you know, I ummed and ahed for about a millisecond. And of course, I'd absolutely love to do that. What a dream job.
In terms of the Record Store Day release, how long did it take to sort of create it? You mentioned there being several layers. How long does the process take to create something like that?
It was quite lengthy, really, because I tried to work on the Troughton likeness, which was quite difficult, and did quite a few sort of physical drawings and some digital drawings, and then went on to I suppose the whole process probably took about a month overall.
Wow.
Because there were other things going on in between, so it wasn't 100% doing that. But in the time that I was producing sort of thumbnails and sending them off to Demon Music, and them coming back and saying, well, okay, we like this particular one, can you do it like this? And then choosing a specific sort of layout, colour scheme, and then actually doing the original work, the physical work, which then I think there was a couple of false starts. There was one likeness of Troughton I did that I got about 99% of the way through and went, do you know what, I'm starting again. This is not good, because it's quite a big deal for me, quite important. This specific commission, because of a love of the subject matter, really, and wanted to get it right. So there's slightly odd-looking Troughton representations floating around in my pile of unfinished work.
What would you say is there any main inspiration for the style of the release? Because naturally, seeing it and seeing the sort of the style of it, I was immediately brought to mind the work, sort of the early Target novelizations that came out in the 1970s. Was it anything deliberately reminiscent of that, or was it to give it a sort of almost deliberate retro style to the work?
Absolutely, that's what I mean. It was quite a loose kind of brief, but the main part of it was that it was the name Chris Achilleos was thrown around, and who did a lot of the original Target novelizations, and I absolutely loved his work. I remember as a kid going through a Target book a week, and constantly plaguing my parents to go and buy me the next one, and absolutely loved the Chris Achilleos covers. And that was the initial brief, was that it should look like a sort of retro Target cover, and I did inquire about whether they wanted it to look distressed, to look like an old paperback in a way. But in the end, I think the suggestion was that it should be something a bit more contemporary. Yeah. Which was nice, because I got to use some digital effects and some digital colouring on it, which you wouldn't have had in a 70s kind of or 80s reproduction. But it was nice to be able to. I kind of really downloaded a lot of his old colours and really studied how he worked. I obviously can't see how he worked, but he did a lot of the main Doctor Who portrait would almost always be in black and white and done in a sort of pointillist style, and the rest of it he would have rather beautifully painted. So I kind of tried to do a slightly more contemporary take on that, maybe. But I mean, he's amazing, so I can't compete.
Well, it's immensely striking. It perfectly captures that style, which is, if you're aware, is totally different to the other Record Store Day release as well, the 2 Doctor Who releases that are coming out. That's amazing. I love that. I hadn't even been aware that was in existence, but when I saw it, I thought, like you say, it's so different. It's completely, sort of fully painted, very beautiful. Really, really blown away by the other one. In terms of what sort of you mentioned about getting every little factor right. Especially in terms of Patrick Troughton, who has a very, very distinctive face. It's all about the lines around the mouth, for example. And what sort of research or sort of did you do to make sure, like, say, the Cybermen or the lines on the controller's head, what sort of stuff were as accurate as you could achieve? It was just kind of endless studying. I think my my reference folder on my computer for this project is just packed with as many pictures of Troughton as I could find. And as I say, there are quite a few dodgy versions that he doesn't quite look right, or the mouth isn't quite right. Yeah. And the same with the stills. The BBC very kindly sent over to me. They sent over quite a lot of stills from an entire photo library from that particular episode. Plus, they sent me digital copies of the entire story, so I could kind of immerse myself in it and sat there and really absorbed it. Loved the BBC Radiophonic Workshop sounds that kind of employed, so kind of influential and bizarre. That was it. I mean, there was a huge amount of reference, and that kind of, I suppose, key to trying to make it work is to really sit down and completely sort of absorb it, steep yourself in the whole imagery. But lots of dodgy terms. Is there anything that after doing a project like this, is there any other sort of properties you think, I'd really like to do something for that, or indeed any Doctor Who characters that you think, after attempting someone as challenging as Troughton, that you think I'd like to have a go at this or that? I'm really tempted now to have a real go at all of the Doctors, I think. Oh, that would be, you mean you
I've had
must now?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I've had a private commission to do a Matt Smith portrait, so I'm quite looking forward to doing that. Last year I was commissioned to do a Tom Baker, which I just did a black and white ink sketch, and it seems to be, I find it really enjoyable because, as I've mentioned, it's a personal thing. I've always loved it and enjoyed it. So yeah, I'd like to probably have a crack at drawing all of the Doctors, really. But outside of that, my love's always been very much comic book based. I'd love to draw Batman. I'd like to have a Bad Judge Dredd, all those kind of things. More work is all I need. Drawing is cathartic.
Yeah. Well, in term, I wish you the very best of luck. Hopefully, in managing to draw all of the Doctors, or eventually getting to that stage. Is there anything you'd want to say to people who, no doubt, along with me, will be travelling to their nearest vinyl store tomorrow to pick up these releases?
Just enjoy. I was absolutely thrilled to bits to be involved, and I think it's wonderful that people are supporting small record stores and that it's such a big deal. I really think it's I don't know, it's just big people power. People enjoying something that, instead of having sort of all these kind of slightly limited digital media thrown down their throats, people get to hold a really lovely physical item. And I was sent a promotional copy of the piece that I did, and it's so exciting to hold this 12-inch vinyl, brand new, taking the silver vinyl out of the sleeves. It's wonderful. I mean, you're almost kind of smelling it.
Yeah.
Takes me back to being a kid. So yeah, if anyone buys it and enjoys my work, I'd love to hear from them.
Well, thank you very much. And I must say as well, hopefully you'll enjoy listening to the audio soundtrack of Tomb of the Cybermen as much as you no doubt did examining the pictures and the episode over and over again to draw the piece. Well,
no, it's I downloaded the soundtrack as well and sat there listening to it, and just completely out there.
Your whole life has been taken over by Tomb of the Cybermen.
It was for a while. It was, but in a good way.
Of course. Well, David, thank you very much for speaking to me today, and hopefully everyone along with me will be going out to get these releases. And thank you very much for providing us with some of your time.
No, thank you very much for asking me. Really much appreciated. Thank you.